ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Alright, class, go get changed into your hero outfits and meet at Mach City B. It's time for your hero training. Chairs shuffled across the floor of Class 1A. The students listened to their teacher Shota Aizawa with excitement coursing through their veins. Man, I wonder what we're going to do today. Some of the most boisterous students, such as Kaminari, wondered out loud. There was one student, however, who took a bit longer than anyone else. Izuku smiled, shoving his hero analysis journal within his backpack before the sweetest voice he could hear entered his range. Izuku, come on, we have to go before Aizawa-sensei gets mad at us. Turning to look, he spotted Ochako Uraraka, his first love and now girlfriend. He had confessed to her after the Hosu incident months ago, and since then they had been what Mina dubbed the Cinnabon couple. Oh yeah, sorry. Rubbing the back of his head, Izuku stood up before Uraraka grabbed his hand, leading him out of the classroom. Leaving to follow after their classmates, they stopped when they saw their sister Class 1B exit their classroom. Oh look, it's Midoriya. The first to notice their presence was their class representative, Itsuka Kendo. The ginger-haired girl smiled, giving a large wave before her eyes drifted to the couple's interlocked hands. She wasn't the only one to notice, as Reiko Yanagi gave an emotionless stare. Oh hey, Kendo, sorry, but we were just on our way to our hero training, so we can't talk right now, but maybe later, hurriedly giving an excuse as they two ran off. Itsuka gave a forced smile before responding. Oh, of course, go ahead. Once the two left Itsuka's side. What's wrong, Prez? Missing Mean Green, already Setsuna, lightly elbowed her friend in the ribs. It was obvious to the lizard girl that her Prez was crushing hard on Midoriya. Blushing, Itsuka crossed her arms. What are you saying? I just care about him as a classmate. Besides, he already has a girlfriend. Yes, so please refrain from any more teasing, Tokage. Reiko joined in, having heard enough about Izuku's girlfriend. Raising her hands, Setsuna conceded, stopping her teasing, but did take notice of Itsuka's blushing and the small frustration on Reiko's face. Izuku entered the boys' changing room, seeing his friends already changing into their hero suits. Joining them, he went to his locker, unlocking it, and pulling out his hero case. Removing his shirt off, Izuku could immediately feel the stars directed toward him. He knew the reason why. His back, chest, arms, and sides of him were decorated with scars. All of them looked as if his flesh had been forcibly gouged out, while others looked as though he had been roasted in a fire. Pretending not to notice, Izuku did not say a word, especially when a stern glare from Bakugo entered his line of sight of him. You better not say trash, Deku. The message was clear, so quickly he tried to change into his hero suit. He had gotten faster since the beginning of UA, and in no time at all he had finished changing. Being the first to leave, Izuku stood by the wall. Why am I? Groaning, he put a hand to his forehead from him. He shouldn't be afraid of Bakugo. He never showed it, but he loathed the monster. His childhood was a living hell because of Bakugo. One for All sparked unconsciously, the lightning growing erratic until it stung, causing Izuku to grip his wrist from him. What? Gripping harder, Izuku felt One for All continue to grow in its power output, but he couldn't control it. Gritting his teeth, he tried to focus, and the quirk slowly died down until it had cut out. Shaking his head, he clenched his fist a few times. He had no idea what just happened. It had never done this before. Forcing himself to forget about it, he looked at his other classmates of him. They were all dressed in their hero suits and gear, ready for the upcoming training practice. With a lack of disturbances, the students made their way to the Mach City smoothly. After they arrived, the first people they saw were Aizawa and All Might, the two being their instructors for this exercise in particular. Good, you're all here. Aizawa started looking at the group before he continued. Today we will be running a simulated battle experience against each other. Now, you faced off in 2v2 situations at the beginning of the year, along with battles against teachers themselves. Today, however, will be different. Well said, Aizawa, laughing in his deflated form. All Might patted the underground hero's back. This will be a special training exercise to see how far you all have come. All of Class 1A will be on the hero team except for one. The one who is selected to be on the villain team will be random. We will go one by one until everyone has a chance to be a villain. The villain's task is simple, to prevent their capture. This can be done by fighting or hiding, it doesn't matter. The heroes will try and capture the villain using any means necessary. To mark a capture, a hero must wrap the yellow tape around the villain's arms and/or legs. Izuku looked at his classmates. He had already memorized the rules, but the smirk on Bakugu's face after the any means necessary was not something he liked at all. Izuku's hand from him sparked his quirk activating as he thought of the damage Bakugu would try to inflict on their classmates. All right, now to begin the selection. The first student to be a villain is Grape Juice. What? Don't please, Mineta screamed, gaining a chuckle out of the class. The small midget pleading tugging at Aizawa's pants annoyed the man. All right, the exercise begins now. I don't even get a head start. Mineta fainted, falling unconscious, the stress too much for him to handle. Looking at each other, the class didn't know what to do until most laid their eyes on Izuku. Why are you looking at me? He was confused until many of the female classmates looked towards the down Mineta. Slowly walking forward, he was thrown a small roll of yellow tape by Aizawa. Kneeling, he slowly wrapped the tape around her Mineta's arm when a buzzer sounded. Good job, problem child. Aizawa gave a small smile to Izuku before straightening up. Now that you all understand what to do, it's time for the real exercise to start. So can someone please wake up Mineta? Kaminari sighed, pulling away his friend before delivering a small shock to the boy. After Mineta awoke, the true exercise began. One by one, the students went as villains, and most were as expected a bit horrible. Of course, there were exceptions such as Momo, who laid out several traps for the hero team, and Toru, who used her invisibility to its utmost capability. Although they were good, none excelled more than Izuku during each exercise. The hero team succeeded each time because of his influence, and as such, he had drawn the scorn of one person in particular. Alright, so far so good. Now it's time for the villain Deku to make his appearance. Aizawa and All Might were particularly excited to see this matchup. It was obvious to them why the hero team was successful, so with their golden boy now on the other side, how would the hero team fare? After the round had started, Izuku had blasted off using OFA before ducking into one of the allies in the large city. He planned to hide, and while he could fight, he wanted to save that only for the last resort, particularly because his quirk was acting peculiar. In the last few rounds, Bakugu had been getting more aggressive in his pursuits of him, and most of their classmates had become a target of his attacks and outbursts of him. The way they were treated was like how he was. The persistent insults, the needless violence. It was all wearing down on Izuku, and his anger had started getting out of control. It had become a reminder of his past. He felt like he was reliving all the explosions and abuse he had taken from his hands. Closing his eyes from him, he tried to calm himself down, but Bakugu's yelled voice echoed through the area. Where the hell are you, DKU? He's close. Looking above his head, he searched for any sign of the heroes when he suddenly shot his hand out, throwing Toru, who attempted to wrap the tape around his forearm. He's over here. Activating OFA, Izuku jumped from wall to wall, scaling the alleyway. Toru's yell no doubt attracted the heroes to come his way. Reaching the top, Izuku jumped, attempting to gain ground so that he may run away. Don't you think you can run, idiot? AP shot. Izuku hissed in pain as an explosive shot grazed his arm. If he hadn't moved, it would have no doubt opened a hole in his arm. Izuku turned back, flicking his finger and sending a shot of air that sent some of his classmates back. I have to thank Hatsum. His Air Force gloves from him had been improved by leaps and bounds, all thanks to Hatsum. It had been odd how clingy she had gotten recently, but now wasn't the time to be thinking of her. Trying to escape, Izuku had searched for the safest route to explore, but it seems that he had been accounted for as well. Landing on top of an apartment building, Izuku was blown off his feet by an explosive mine created by Momo. Being thrown into the air, he couldn't react as Todoroki shot a column of ice, freezing his body. Managing to cover his face from him, Izuku plummeted into the city square. His fall had mostly been cushioned, but that didn't mean he was unscathed. Standing up, Izuku saw the group of heroes land in front of him, with Bakugu leading the pack. Searching, he tried to find a way to escape, only for an unannounced AP shot to shoot through his leg from him. Falling to the floor, he heard the heroes yelling, Uraraka being the loudest. What are you doing, Bakugu? What the hell, bro? Shut up, you extras, Katsuki snarled, stalking toward Izuku, who tried to cover the hole and stop the bleeding. UDKU thinking you're better than me, this is what you deserve. What are you talking about? Izuku was genuinely confused. He had done nothing to provoke Bakugo so far, but an explosion-fueled fist pummeled his jaw from him. Facing the ground, Izuku could hear an announcement come through the speakers of the city. Katsuki Bakugo, any more violence, and you will be expelled. Katsuki clicked his tongue before smirking. Grabbing Izuku by the collar of his hero uniform, Katsuki spoke with barbed words. You scared cat, always needing someone to save you. You are so pathetic. No wonder Naitai died. No wonder why Inko is nothing but a fat pig. Ofa sparked wildly. The anger Izuku had been controlling lashing out at once. Using his uninjured leg, he kicked Bakugo in the stomach with Ofa unrestrained. His foot stung, but it did not break. Katsuki launched, but the resulting shockwave sent the others flying in all directions. They crashed into buildings, and it didn't end there. Too angry to think, Izuku launched forward and towards Bakugo's direction, finding the boy buried within a wall. Don't you dare! Throwing Bakugo to the floor, Izuku pummeled him. The skin on his knuckles from him tore. He was only focused on dealing as much pain to Bakugo as humanely possible. All those years when you beat me down, my entire childhood, I'll make you feel a fraction of what I experienced. Ofa fluctuated, parts of the lightning turning crimson red. It flickered between green and red continuously. His hero costume tore as Ofa's percentage spiked. The Air Force gloves May had constructed were missing most of their fabric, exposing Izuku's skin. Bakugo's face was drenched in vital fluid, nose bent, and cheeks swollen. Yet a grin was still kept on the smug monster's face. Planning on bringing this to an end, Izuku lifted his arm only for someone to grab onto it tightly. Izuku, stop. Gritting his teeth, Izuku tugged at his arm, accidentally hitting the person who had grabbed him. Looking back, Izuku froze in shock as Ochako held her face where her cheek was swelling badly. Boom. Izuku was blasted back. Katsuki using one last explosion before passing out. Before Izuku could get up, Ofa cut out entirely, his quirk from him being erased as Aizawa kneeled to him. Problem child, are you alright? Yeah. Aizawa looked concerned, but looked at the others, commanding all might to rush Bakugo to recovery girl. Alright, come on. Aizawa helped Izuku up by giving the boy a shoulder to lean on. We gotta get you fixed up. But what about? They are already being taken care of. Silence reigned between the student and teacher. Izuku looked back to the crying Uraraka, who looked at him with fear in her eyes. Following her line of sight, he looked at his hands, which were torn and dripping with crimson fluid. This wasn't your fault, problem child. I saw and heard everything. Trust me, we'll work something out. Aizawa gave Izuku a reassuring smile. Izuku gave a half-hearted smile back. That incident was 3 weeks ago, and things couldn't be any worse. His friends looked at him like he was a monster, forgetting that Bakugo had started it in the first place. Even Uraraka had been keeping her distance from him, and it was all mentally taxing, not to mention how Bakugo constantly reminded him of his actions day in and day out. His control of him over Ofa was at an all-time low as well. Every time he activated the quirk, it would quickly become unstable and dangerous. He couldn't fathom why this was happening to him. Honestly, he probably would have broken down had he not received the support he did after the incident. Class 1B, the Big Three, Aizawa, Midnight, Hatsum, hell, even Mitsuki Bakugo. They were all pillars of support that kept him stable, but none more so than the most important people in his life. His daughter, Eri Midoriya, who was officially adopted with help from UA after the overhaul incident, and his mother, Inko Midoriya, an angel of a woman who did not judge him after he had told her what led up to such an outburst. Right now, he was currently headed towards the faculty break room to pick up Eri, having left the girl with Midnight during his daily training to get his quirk back under control. Entering the large H-shaped building, he headed to the second floor. Walking down the hallways, he kept his head down. The training incident had spread outside Class 1A and into the entirety of the school. As such, he was isolated from everyone else. It's like Aldera all over again, Izuku sighed. He wasn't sure he could deal with this. Izuku felt a weight jump onto him while two soft mounds pushed against his back. A pair of hands snaked towards his chest. He did not need to look to know who it was. May, what are you doing? Getting your measurements, obviously. May jumped off as Izuku turned around, staring at the pink-haired steampunk overlord. Izuku couldn't help but smile at May, and while he would usually blush madly at her touching him, and at the touch melons he had already become somewhat accustomed to it. Over the weeks, he visited the support studio constantly more than he did before the hero training. She had been the one who supported him with gear to properly get his quirk under control. He had asked her before why she was doing it, but he had never gotten a straight answer, only a small blush, and if I don't help you, then who will help test my babies? It was her along with Itsuka and Reiko who had been the most supportive and helping in his journey. That also included Aizawa, who helped him train daily and gave him free time despite the fact he was supposed to be placed on house suspension. Anyways, what are you doing right now? I got a new version of your Air Force gloves ready to go. Actually, I'm on my way to pick up Eri, so I don't think I'll be able to test them out right now. Mei smiled brightly. Fine still. You got to promise you'll come by later this week, so go. Pushing Izuku to walk, Mei waved him off. Tell my baby I said hi. Wait, what? I said to tell her I said hi. Before Izuku could question Mei further, she ran off, and though he couldn't see it, she had a massive blush over her face. Shrugging it off, he continued down his path before reaching the staff room. Knocking, he heard a quiet come in. Opening the door, Izuku walked through the empty room before looking at the couch. Sitting, Namuri Kiyama, or Midnight, sat in her latex suit in her arms. A small white-haired girl lay sleeping on her rack, drooling slightly. Midoriya, I was wondering when you were coming by. Midnight flashed the boy a smile before adjusting Eri in her arms. The way she held the girl tenderly reminded Izuku of how a mother would cradle their sleeping child. The scene brought a small blush to his cheeks from him as he sat across from Namuri on the twin couch. Sorry for leaving you with taking care of her. I know you are busy, Midnight-sensei. I hope she wasn't too much of a bother. Namuri giggled. Not at all, Midoriya. This little one is so cute, I'm glad to take care of her. By the way, what did I say about calling me Midnight-sensei when we are alone? Izuku blushed. He just couldn't handle her teasing. Sorry, Namuri. Namuri blushed, giving slightly another small smile. So Midoriya, how is everything with your class? Has it gotten any better? Izuku noticed the genuine concern on Namuri's face. It wasn't one that a teacher showed any student, but one that only someone truly invested would give. Honestly, not at all. They all avoid me like I'm the plaque. Even Ochako has been distant. Namuri shook her head. Doesn't she see Izuku for who he is? Getting up, she moved past the small wooden coffee table before taking a seat next to Izuku. Still holding Eri with one hand, she put her free hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry to hear that, Midoriya. It wasn't your fault. If you want, I can go and talk to them. No, it's better if they take some time. We're friends, so I'm sure they'll come back around. If you say so. Namuri took her hand off of Izuku before the two continued their small talk. Namuri often enjoyed these times as it was an opportunity to speak to Izuku as a woman and not as Midnight. They talked for what seemed like hours, but were only half of one. Various topics came to mind, such as quirk improvements and hero work. That was until it came time for Izuku to go. Well, I've got to get back to the dorms before it gets too late. Thank you for taking care of Eri once again, Namuri. As I said, Midoriya, it's no problem. I love this little one. Namuri handed Eri into Izuku's arms, embracing on her sleeping child's cheek. The two waved each other out Izuku, leaving while Namuri took the remaining time she had to decompress. Carrying Eri, Izuku headed back to the 1A dorms. The little girl stirred, opening her red eyes just a tad bit. Papa? Eri hugged Izuku, digging her head into Izuku's chest. Yeah, Papa is here, Eri. Giving the girl a small kiss on her horn, he stopped momentarily. He allowed Eri to get comfortable, her small hands gripping her shirt with her eyes closing slowly. He couldn't blame her. It was nearing 8:30 p.m., and he was tired from training. Still, he had to bathe and make sure she had eaten, though he suspected Midnight had already fed her. It didn't take long for Izuku to arrive at the 1A dorms, and nearing the door he hesitated. Have his friends of him finally changed their minds? He asked himself that question every day, hoping for an answer he would like. Turning the knob to the door, he entered only to find no one in the common room. He hadn't expected much, but to see that there wasn't anyone honestly surprised him. They're probably all in their rooms. Going up the stairs, he headed for his dorm room. Entering, he went straight to the closet, grabbing a set of pajamas for Eri along with a fluffy towel. Slowly, he nudged his daughter awake, whispering in her ear, "Wake up, Eri. It's time to take a bath." Sighing, Izuku scratched his head. It didn't seem like Eri would be waking anytime soon. Well, I guess she can always take a bath tomorrow. Putting the towel down, Izuku still had to change the girl out of her clothes. The last thing he wanted was for his daughter to be uncomfortable. After changing her, he tucked her into bed, giving her a green stuffed bunny to hold while she slept. While he originally planned on only bathing Eri, she didn't wake up, and since he was sure he wouldn't have time tomorrow, he decided that now would be best. Izuku felt the hot streams of water flow over his scarred skin. The deeper scars had made their own streams and flows. Having a moment of silence, he looked down at his hand, activating OFA, the lightning sparking to life with vigor. Izuku's mind thought back to when he beat Bakugo. That red lightning. He wanted to draw it out, but he didn't know how it happened at the moment, and during that time Izuku didn't have time to think. A grin broke out on Izuku's face remembering the fight though. He really enjoyed pummeling Bakugo. To him, someone like Bakugo was irredeemable, as after all this time in UA Bakugo still acted like a kid with a god complex, and a dangerous kid at that. To show that person that he was nothing compared to him felt good. Izuku hated himself for it, but that didn't mean he could ignore it. Taking his mind off it, Izuku turned off the shower. Steam rose off his freshly washed skin as Izuku grabbed his nearby towel, wiping away any leftover water before he left the shower room, and into the small shower locker room with small wooden baskets near the wall. After drying himself, he changed into his sleepwear. It wasn't anything fancy, just a pair of black shorts and a white tank top. He had abandoned the idea of wearing All Might merch since the incident, as All Might had started acting weirder near him. At training, he would look at Izuku in a scrutinizing way and with nothing other than disappointment. To see such a thing from a father figure he looked up to had hurt. With his hair still freshly wet, he left going back to his dorm only to stop once he saw Ochako's door. He wanted to talk to her. He had tried apologizing in every way he could think of, but to him, it didn't seem like she accepted it. Going to her door, he lightly tapped the white wooden door with his knuckles, waiting for an answer. Waiting, he still got no response, so slowly he spoke up. "Ochako, I'm coming in." Opening the door, he looked around the rather plain room, only to see something he wished he never did. Clothes lay on the ground, and if it had only been Ochako's, then there wouldn't have been an issue. It wasn't just her clothes, however. With her clothes were articles belonging to a man. Looking up to the bed, her eyes went wide. His girlfriend was sleeping naked, and with Bakugo of all people. Both of them were clearly physical with each other. Izuku could smell the sweat in the air. He screamed, his tears springing into his eyes from him, and OFA activating unconsciously like. Before the neon green bled. "UI?" Closing the door, Izuku stepped back out into the hallway, his grip on him causing the handle to become crushed. Izuku put his hands to his face, silently brewing in anger. He wanted to level the dorm. He wanted to slaughter Bakugo with his bare hands, but the thought of Eri being caught up in his rage had him steady his hand. He turned, walking back to his dorm, tears still freshly dripping down his face as OFA died out. Entering his room, he sat at the door of his bed, trying to muffle his sobs. He gave her everything he possibly could. He grew strong to protect her. So why? Why would she do this? He may have freaked out during training, but did that warrant cheating? Nope, she threw away their entire relationship for the monster that ruined his life from him. "Papa." Izuku's head snapped back, looking as Eri rubbed her eyes, still clutching her bunny. "Sniff, Eri, shouldn't you be sleeping, Snowball?" "Papa, are you sad?" Turning his head away, Izuku forced himself to smile. He couldn't face Eri while he was crying. "No, Papa, just," he couldn't come up with an excuse fast enough, only putting his head down. He remained silent, feeling small movements on the bed, until Eri hugged him from behind. "Papa saved me from the bad man. I was sad, but Papa saved me. He made me happy. So don't be sad. I want to save Papa." Izuku shifted, hugging Eri back tightly. I have loved her innocence of her. He had thought she lost it when she was tortured by Overhaul, but that part still remained. He wanted to protect it for as long as he could. He had to chuckle at himself as he felt Eri return his hug just as tight. He was supposed to be the hero in training, yet here, he was being saved from just a 6-year-old. "Thank you, Eri. Papa isn't sad anymore. You saved him." Why, she happily cheered, her legs kicking up and down as Izuku stood up before getting into the bed. Pulling the girl off him for a second, he embraced the girl on the forehead. "I love you, Eri." "I love you too, Papa." Rubbing her head, Izuku's teary smile persisted, but it was genuine and filled with happiness. Tucking himself and Eri in, he felt the girl wrap one arm around his forearm. Staring at his ceiling from him, Izuku heard Eri's small snores, which allowed him to think. He was still upset about Uraraka's cheating, and he was livid that out of all people she could have slept with it was Bakugo, but he couldn't show this in front of his daughter. He still wanted to smash Bakugo's face in, but for now, he will wait to confront them when Eri wasn't around. The next day served to be no different than the previous days in the last 3 weeks. He woke up to no hellos from anyone except from Eri and a text from Itsuka and Reiko, his classmates and friends of him if he could call them, that already gone. He was left to bathe Eri and make breakfast alone with only her to keep him company, not that he was complaining. Then the few hours of his suspension from him began. From 6 a.m. until 2 p.m., he was to be kept inside the dorm, though with the help of Izawa. He was merely restricted from entering the main buildings and gyms, meaning that he got to spend time with Eri outside. He was extremely grateful to Izawa for this, because it meant he was able to take Eri outside. While he could handle being inside all day, for Eri, it was the opposite. He didn't. So as of now, the day had been mostly the same until 1 p.m. came around. At the dorms, Izuku was busy in the kitchen cooking up a small lunch for Eri before he took her to Namuri's office and went to go train. Izuku could hear the TV in the common room on as a children's show played through the speakers. Focused on cooking, Izuku only stopped when the door to the dorms suddenly opened. Looking back, he heard Eri's rapid footsteps go toward him before the girl hid behind his leg. Ectoplasm-sensei? The skull-faced hero had entered the dorm looking directly at him. Midoriya, I've come to tell you that All Might wants to see you in his office immediately. Oh, sure, I just have to finish up lunch. Can he wait a little bit? Izuku was sure whatever All Might had to say was important, but Eri's well-being took priority. Just be quick. Nodding, Izuku patted Eri's head before turning back to the lunch. He was almost finished cooking. Since his time window was short, he had to pack it in a small lunchbox for Eri. Normally, she would eat at the dorms, but not this time. All right, Eri, let's get going. Lifting her in his arm, Izuku followed Ectoplasm, who escorted him to the main UA building. Entering, they headed upstairs when Izuku heard a group coming their way. Stepping aside to let them pass, Izuku saw his upperclassmen heading toward the exit. I guess it's time for their hero training. Oh, look, it's Izuku and Eri. A loud yell caught his attention, and Eri looking smiled happily as the big three made their entrance. Eri held out her arms as Nijire ran ahead of Mirio and Amajiki. Nijire Eri's excited yell was only matched by the pure joy in Nijire's face as she gently took Eri from Izuku's arms. Cooing, Nijire rubbed her cheek against Eri's. So cute, 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 Eri giggled, and Izuku smiled. Hey, well, looks like the usual, doesn't it, Midoriya? Yeah, as long as Eri likes it's more than okay, isn't that right, Mirio-senpai? Izuku gave a hug to the big three leader. Pulling away, he also waved at Amajiki, the shy boy waving back. That's for sure anyways. What are you doing right now, Izuku? Eri working in Animoves. Maybe even super moves, or is it quirk training? Before Nijire could go off on a tangent, Izuku interrupted. Nijire, you're doing it again. EP, blushing bright red, Nijire tried to hide her face behind Eri, lifting the girl to cover herself. Normally this sight would be odd to anyone who has just met Nijire, but to Izuku it had become really common. The girl was usually blunt, but near him, she had become somewhat reserved and, dare he say, easily embarrassed by her personality. Haha, don't worry too much. I was on my way to meet up with All Might after dropping Eri off. Sorry, are we intruding? Amajiki timidly asked, looking at Ectoplasm, who shook his head no. Not at all, it's always good to see you three. I'm sure Eri feels the same. Yup, Eri yelled, hugging Nijire's head. There you have it. Mirio smiled before he looked at his watch. It was good seeing you both, but if we don't go now, we'll be late for training. I understand. It really was good seeing all of you. Izuku sent the three off with a smile after collecting Eri from Nijire, the female member of the big three, constantly looking back as she walked away. Carrying on with their tasks before Izuku had dropped Eri off with Namuri along with her lunchbox before he was taken to All Might's office. After knocking and hearing it come in, he was sat down on the couch. Young Midoriya, would you like some tea? Yes, please. Izuku waited as All Might served him a cup. He may have been paranoid, but the atmosphere of the room was extremely heavy and the tension grew thicker each moment. So, All Might, why did you call me here? Young Midoriya, I want to talk to you about OFA. What about it? Is it my control? I've been getting better at maintaining it these past few weeks, but I'm still having trouble. Yes, I know, and that's precisely why I called you in here. You see, young Midoriya, the incident with Bakugo a few weeks ago put things into perspective for me, and these past few weeks I watched you struggle with a quirk that took me only a year to master. Toshinori narrowed his eyes, looking straight into Izuku's, the boy becoming unnerved. What are you saying? Toshinori sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I'm saying that I think you should hand OFA over to another person. Wait. It's clear that you have no control over your emotions, and that you aren't strong enough to wield such a powerful quirk. I don't doubt you have that same heroic spirit you had when I first met you, but that isn't enough anymore. Simply put, you aren't good enough to be the true successor of OFA. Hold on, All Might, you chose me. Standing up, Izuku yelled, his eyes teary. He couldn't understand. You said I was your successor, that I was worthy. And I don't regret saying that, but worthiness doesn't mean you deserve it. Izuku sat back down, his hands going to his hair. So who? Who do you think deserves it? Who? Bakugo. Izuku froze, his vision going red with rage. Bakugo, he isn't worthy, nor does he deserve it. He's violent and self-centered backstabbing monster. He blasted a hole into my leg. But that was necessary. Young Midoriya, had he not done what he did, you could have easily ran away, and in terms of apprehending a villain, he did the right thing. You, on the other hand, nearly beat him to death. What? I nearly beat him to death? Are you blind? Izuku sparked OFA by placing his palms against the desk, glaring at All Might, who didn't flinch. He's nearly killed me before, yet he didn't so much as get a slap on his wrist. I got house suspension and got threatened with expulsion. He gets off scot-free and sleeps with my girlfriend, and you tell me he's a better option? Personal relations aside, this is the best choice. So please give up OFA willingly, or I will force you to. Izuku went quiet, head dropping while he smiled. What a joke. What a joke. You chose me, told me I could become a hero, but now you remove it away from me and give it to the one person who is everything I struggled, I cried and bled for this quirk. He just gets it handed to him. Like everything else, OFA turned crimson red, and the wood beneath Izuku's hands cracked. Izuku just couldn't handle this anymore. Uraraka cheating on him. His friends looking at him like he was the monster, and Bakugo getting everything he could want. It was unfair, so unfair. Izuku flipped the table, sending it crashing through the windows and down to the cement below. You fake piece of trash, you haven't helped me since day one. You let Bakugo's attack almost finish me on the first day. You didn't give any of your so precious time to even train me. You didn't help me gain control. You only sat back as I broke my body over and over. Aizawa-sensei and Gran Torino were the only people who helped me. You have no right to sit there and tell me where this quirk should go. You sit there with your pretentious attitude, like you know everything about heroism when you couldn't even teach a single class. You're trash at being a mentor, you're trash at being a decent person, and you suck at being a hero. You let all for one live, you stupid monster. OFA spiked, and spiked, the lightning growing even more chaotic and turning an even deeper red. Izuku's anger knew no bounds. You could have ended the most dangerous being of all time, but you sent him to prison again. You are the cause of so many needless deaths. It's absurd. Young Midoriya, calm down. Don't you dare tell me to calm down. I worked my arse off to be here. You are not going to take this away from me, especially for that pompous idiot. Izuku grabbed All Might by the collar as he did, so the door opened, the office with most of the staff present. Aizawa, seeing this, was the first to step in, not before yelling at the other heroes to stand down. Midoriya, put All Might down. Come on, me, and you can talk through this. Aizawa had never seen Izuku's quirk react like this, and while he was pressured to use his quirk from him, he trusted Izuku like a son, and the last thing he wanted was to break it. Izuku looked at Aizawa, taking deep breaths as the teacher approached him with his guard down. Turning away, he glared at All Might before throwing the retired hero to the floor. With his fist still clenched, he was walked out by Aizawa, the man leading him out of the building. Wait, I need to get airy. I don't think now's the best time. Midnight will take care of her. First, we need to calm you down, all right? Aizawa walked side by side with Izuku, not a hint of hesitation in his body from him. If Izuku was mad, Aizawa was sure he had a valid reason to be. Sitting in one of the many forest parks within UA, Aizawa sat on a bench right beside Izuku, who had told his story about him. Jesus, what has this school come to? I'm sorry, Izuku, but All Might will probably take this up with Nizu, and I'm sure he'll spin it in his favor. I can't do this. Aizawa patted Izuku on his back. He didn't know why Izuku was going through something like this. The boy did not deserve any of this harsh treatment, and it was unbecoming of UA to be doing such things to a student with the best potential in the first place. It's all right, Izuku. I just want you to know that whatever happens, there is people who will have your back. Namiri, myself, 1B, and many more. I'm sure you know this, right? Izuku smiled, looking over at his teacher. I do. Not to mention Eri. I'm sure once she hears how they are treating her papa, she'll threaten to rewind everyone. Aizawa tried to lighten the atmosphere, something completely foreign to him. Heh, yeah, but I prefer if she wasn't involved. It's got nothing to do with her. I know. Aizawa sat back, staring at the tree line just ahead of them. I can't believe this is happening. I can't and won't blame you for being mad or losing control. In fact, I'm tempted to expel Uraraka and Bakugu for what they did, but I know we'll be fought on that. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei. To be honest with you, I thought you had always hated me, but I know you were just trying to make me better, and I thank you for that. Well, you are my problem child. Still thank you. Buzz. Izuku pulled out his phone. The device vibrating as a caller ID came up on the screen. Sorry, it's my mom. Go ahead, take it. Nodding, Izuku answered the call. Hey, Mom. Izuku, sweetie, I was just calling to check up on you. It's been so long since you visited. I miss my baby boy. I was hoping that maybe you can come visit today. Of course, I don't want you to get in trouble, but I just want to hug my baby. Izuku smiled, though he did scratch his cheek. His mother was being kind of giddy. Too giddy, but he chalked up to his paranoia. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's just gotten busy here at UA, and I haven't had the free time to visit, but I'll ask right now if I can. Plus, I really would like to talk to you in person. Izuku looked at Aizawa, pleading silently when the teacher waved. Go ahead. You probably need it after today. It seems like I can visit. When should I come by? As soon as you can, sweetie. They'll prepare a feast of katsudon just for you. Sounds great. I'll be there in an hour. Bye. The call ended after that, and Izuku smiled. He needed to talk to his mom. Other than Aizawa, she was probably the only other person she could talk to about this. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei. It's no big deal, problem child. Standing up, Aizawa groaned. You best go get ready. In the meantime, I'll try to smooth things over with Nizu. Thank you. Yep, you owe me some coffee for this. Sure thing, I'll be back before curfew. Aizawa gave a smirk, walking away from Izuku, though as soon as he left, a knot formed in his gut. Izuku took a deep breath as he stood at his mother's apartment door. Dressed in a pair of jeans and a shirt, he prepared himself for the hug he was bound to get as soon. As he walked in, he had thought of bringing Eri along with him, but he had decided not to. This conversation was better to have in private. Opening the door, Izuku yelled out, a smile on his face. Mom, I'm home. Izuku got ready, but his smile suddenly faded once he saw the state of the apartment. Furniture was strewn about, broken glass and vital fluid staining the carpet. Mom entering the home, he searched around, OFA activating. Mom, where? Izuku felt a chill creep down his spine before he felt a prick at the base of his neck. Turning, he saw Toga, the girl, smiling as she held a needle in her hand. Her school's beige sweater caked in crimson-red fluid. Her lovesick face on full display as Izuku's mind warped. Oh, Aiza, you don't look so good. Do you want to lie down? Izuku's vision blurred and the boy stumbled, but he tried to swing nonetheless, only to find himself fall to the ground. You what? SHHH, just close your eyes, Aizu. Soon we'll have some real fun. Izuku's vision cut to black. The last thing he had seen was Toga's twisted smile. Aizawa stood by the gates of UA. His posture showed an ungodly amount of restlessness. His foot tapped on the ground, and he checked the time on his phone constantly. The night was rapidly approaching, and Izuku had yet to return to campus. While he did say he could visit his mother, that didn't mean he could stay there, and he was sure Izuku knew this. So why hasn't he returned? He didn't think it odd until midnight had come to him saying that Izuku had been late to pick up Eri. That itself wasn't alarming, and perhaps after the argument with All Might, he just didn't want to come back. Aizawa couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong. Is he still not here? Aizawa looked over his shoulder, seeing Snipe walking toward him. No, something isn't right. Aizawa shook his head. He just couldn't leave this alone. Aizawa, don't you reckon he'd rather be with his mother than his classmates? I'd understand if that was the case, but Aizawa just couldn't wrap his head around why he had a pit formed in his stomach. I'm going to the Midoriyas and bringing him back. Aizawa left before he could hear Snipe's response. Though the situation didn't warrant it, he sprinted towards the Midoriya household. He didn't know why, but he had to hurry. Something within the fiber of his legs told him so. He sprinted, leaped across rooftops, and weaved through people on the sidewalk, trying to shorten the distance as fast as he could. He hated how loud his heart thumped, and he hated the deafening silence of uncertainty. It took around 15 minutes by Aizawa's count to reach Inko's apartment complex. Jumping over the gate, he ran to the third floor of the second complex. He had memorized the apartment number like it was his own. To him, it wasn't odd to do, as Izuku had the habit of appearing in the hospital. Still, that knowledge came in handy as he arrived at the door. Ringing the doorbell and knocking loudly, he waited for a response only to get nothing. He tried several times before he yelled, "Mrs. Midoriya, it's Shota Aizawa. Izuku's homeroom teacher, please open the door." Clicking his teeth, he knocked again before he made a split-second decision. Turning the knob, he pushed open the door only to pause. Immediately his guard went up, and he fixed his goggles over his eyes. The apartment was a mess and with littered floor. Izuku, Mrs. Midoriya stepping inside, he kept his wits about him. He searched the apartment up and down. He left nothing to the imagination, but what turned up was nothing. No sign of Izuku or Inko. Aizawa ran a hand through his hair as he returned to the main living room. If Izuku fought back, there would have been a bigger struggle. If he didn't, then that means he was ambushed. He tried to make sense of the situation and desperately tried to not panic. As he was trying to figure out what happened, a tiny glint caught his attention. The moonlight that shined through the partially open blinds shined on a small object. Quickly he reached his hand, grabbing a small syringe. The smell that wafted in the air told him all he needed to know. Toxins. Aizawa shook his head before he dug into his pocket, pulling out his cell phone. Quickly he failed Nizu's number, which picked up after a few rings. "Nizu, I need you to mobilize all available staff and police. Midoriya and his mother have been kidnapped. Their apartment is trashed, and I suspect Midoriya was intoxicated." He ended the call before he heard a word back. Putting the syringe down, he quickly left the apartment, rushing out towards the streets. "Hold on, problem child, I'm bringing you home." "Where, who?" Izuku's head pounded, and his body felt sluggish and unresponsive. He couldn't focus. His thoughts were all jumbled up. Even his internal questioning failed to grasp his situation. His vision was dark, and he could only hear small, subdued muffles. As far as Izuku could tell, he was sitting down, but he couldn't move his wrists, nor could he even activate his quirk. "Wakey, wakey." Izuku's irises burned as the cover of darkness was ripped off, being replaced with bright lights. Closing his eyes, he slowly allowed them to readjust before he saw the face of Shigaraki staring down at him with a large smile on the man's scarred face. "You. Oh, Aizu, I'm so glad you're awake." Toga jumped onto Izuku's lap, forcibly embracing the boy on the lips. Izuku recoiled as Toga pulled away. Gagging, Izuku leaned forward, throwing up. The toxins mixed with her repulsive embrace was too much for his stomach to bear. The throw-up fell to the floor, and even onto Toga's skirt and part of her uniform. The girl was more than displeased as her lovesick face twisted into a rage. "Now that isn't nice." Slap. Izuku's cheek stung with a fresh red handprint made by the messy bun-haired girl. "Where am I? Ugh, what did you do to my mom?" Izuku's mind had cleared just enough to remember the state of the apartment before he had fallen unconscious. He had already figured out he had been drugged, but as long as his mother was okay, then he didn't care. "Why don't you see for yourself?" It wasn't Shigaraki nor Toga who spoke, so looking, he turned his head, spotting Dabi, Twice, Spinner, Kirojiri, and Compress, all watching, most of them smiling. Dabi stepped away from the group, his footsteps echoing. "Wherever this place is. It's big." Izuku tried to determine where he was. If he figured that out, he could potentially alert people to his location. There was, however, an absence of noise from the outside, which didn't bode well. "Hey, pay attention, we have something we are excited to show you." Izuku felt his jaw being roughly grabbed, and his head was made to look directly in front of him. Dabi disappeared into the darkness of the room. Before he emerged, in his grasp were long locks of dark green hair. Izuku's eyes widened, and he thrashed in his seat as the person was brought into the light. "Let her go, you idiots, I'll finish you all." Izuku tugged at his binds and kicked his legs wildly. His mother was thrown to the floor, her face covered in bruises and her clothing ripped in various places. Her head was bleeding, and her eyes dripped with fresh tears. "Oh, that doesn't sound like something a hero would say." Compress mocked from the sidelines, the group joining him, except for Spinner, who stayed silent, a look of regret written on his face. "What do you want?" Izuku glared at Shigaraki, wanting to crush the man's skull with his hands. "I want to send a message. Deku, you don't know how much your involvement has ruined my plans and my master. Well, he doesn't appreciate your interference. I want to show everyone who goes against the LOV what is waiting for them. You and your mother are going to set the stage." Shigaraki's grin widened. I could finish you and get this over with, but I made a promise to myself that it'll make you suffer. Shigaraki snapped his fingers, and Izuku watched as most of the male members of the league surrounded Inko, removing their clothes down. Shigaraki then opened his palms slowly, placing his fingers on Izuku's side. Now let's get started. No stop arc. The war room of UA was a place neither staff nor hero wished to ever be invited to. The staff of Udade sat in their chairs. The tension within the room was thick and volatile. Aizawa's scruffed face was even more tired than usual, his once thin beard now scraggly, having not been shaved for weeks. Namuri depressed. Her eyes showed an absence of life along with a deep-seated longing. All around the teachers were worse for wear. At the head of the table, Principal Nizu took in a deep breath. Today marks a full month since Izuku Midoriya's disappearance. As of today, police have called off the search, and many heroes have as well. It is with regret that we must do the same. We can't. Namuri mumbled, her fists clenching with nails digging into her palm. How can we call off our search? He's our student. What kind of heroes are we if we give up now? With respect, Nizu, I can't do that. I let him go that day. How am I supposed to face Eri or myself if I don't find him? Aizawa banged his fist against the desk, looking at the principal. Aizawa, I understand your guilt, but it wasn't your fault. This situation was completely out of our control. There was no way we could have prevented this. Yeah, we could have. If All Might didn't drive him away that day. If I kept him here. Aizawa glared at Tashinori, but he was angry at himself most of all. Had we not treated him like he was a monster for a simple altercation between two students, he would be here now. He would be training to live up to the expectations set on him. He would be with his daughter. You don't understand. A simple altercation? He almost ended Bakuga's life. All Might spat back, not liking that the blame had been put upon him, and that warranted him being treated like everything else he's ever done was a waste. Go F yourself. Namuri stood for her chair, the piece of furniture clattering on the ground. Katsuki Bakugu is a piece of human garbage. How he made it into the hero program is unbelievable. Why is it that when Bakugu was kidnapped we did absolutely everything to get him back, but when it comes to Izuku you cross your eyes? We knew where Bakugu was then. So just because we don't know where Izuku is you give up? What a hero you are. Had young Midoriya just handed over OFA like he was demanded, none of this would have happened. Aizawa gritted his teeth before he leaped over the table, striking Tashinori. All you care about is the quirk. What about Izuku, huh? Aizawa punched Tashinori again before he was grabbed by Snipe and Present Mike. Shota, stop. You were supposed to be his mentor. You were supposed to support him no matter what. Curse you. I want you to go and say to Eri that you'll find her papa, knowing you're not even a step closer, but you won't. You piece of trash. The other teachers hadn't seen Aizawa so angry before. It was frightening. Namuri too tried to attack, but she was stopped by Cementos. The room had been reduced to anger-filled arguments. It was clear that the bond between the heroes was broken. Nizu had attempted to calm the room down, but it was to no avail. He had nothing he could say to quell the anger, and even before he could come up with something, a ping alerted him to an email from his computer. Opening the email, he did not recognize the sender, but the heading of the email caught his attention. It was a live stream that was playing to every video streaming site in the country. Deku's retirement was what the title read, and Nizu, looking to his staff, yelled, "Everyone, there's a lead on Midoriya." Everyone who had been fighting froze until Aizawa looked to Nizu. Play it now. Nodding, Nizu shared his computer screen with the main TV inside the war room. Clicking to join the stream, the heroes were greeted by a black screen and the sounds of struggled breathing. Izuku's bloodshot eyes drooped. His chest, his legs, his entire being ached in terrible pain. His body dripped with fresh vital fluid. The skin on his stomach and chest was slashed open by one of Toga's knives. His clothes were no more than tatters, and whatever wasn't covered in vital fluid turned purple by trauma or was missing from Shigaraki's disintegration. He didn't know what day it was, whether it was daytime or night. Those were privileges he wasn't allowed. His mother lay in front of him. He had seen her violated and beaten. Like him, she had been carved up and treated no more as a toy. She was already unconscious, and only her shallow breathing told him she was alive, though part of him wished she wasn't. His breaths were heavy and ragged, courtesy of Toga stabbing his lung during he tried to forget. Toga had used him, the lunatic claiming she had wanted his children. As such, she molested him constantly, hour after hour, until he was just a shell. The urge to cry made his eyes wet with tears, but they refused to fall. There was no point anymore. Eri, he mumbled her name. The bright, smiling face of his daughter forced his own to appear. He missed her so much. All he wanted was to hold her in his arms once more. A bitter chuckle came from his mouth. Everything was so unfair. He was born quirkless, making him destined to fail. Then he met All Might and gained a chance to make the world better, only for it to be removed away. Izuku could only feel his anger, the pain fading into the background. They're probably celebrating that the monster is gone. Friends, what a joke. She's probably with him again. Izuku's head dropped low. If he saw me now, he'd laugh. Please, just someone. He hoped someone would save him, but he knew that it was impossible. Izuku, we've come to get you. Izuku scrunched his eyes, his head looking up to see Aizawa. Sensei? He swept his head around, finding the League apprehended. He hadn't even noticed anything. That's right. Come on, problem child, let's get you out of here. Eri's been waiting for you. Izuku felt the binds on his wrists loosen, but he struggled to get up. Luckily, Aizawa helped him. Leaning on Aizawa's shoulder, he looked to find his mom being placed on a stretcher by a team of paramedics. When did? They still got you full of toxins. Don't try to think about everything all at once. Take your time. It's all right now. Izuku felt reassured by Aizawa's words as he closed his eyes, falling asleep. He could finally rest. Beep, beep, beep. Izuku opened his eyes to a pure white room. A hospital? Sitting up, Izuku looked at several verses which were hooked up to his bandaged body. Distracted, he barely noticed the door to his room squeak until a small voice yelled out, "Papa! Eri!" He snapped to attention, watching his little girl run to him in tears. She rapidly climbed the bed before she dove into him. It stung for obvious reasons, but his happiness subdued the pain. Papa too, Eri sobbed, only clinging on to Izuku harder than ever, as if he were going to disappear again. Izuku hugged Eri back tightly, pushing her head into the crook of his neck. Don't worry, Eri, Papa won't ever leave you again. Closing his eyes, Izuku smiled before a hand roughly grabbed his hair. Wake up. We can't have you sleeping. For the grand finale. Huh. What? No, he wasn't saved. That was just a dream, Izuku cried. He just wanted to see her again. He wanted this pain to stop. Don't cry, Izu. Oh, I know. What if we brought that little brat Eri here for this? Wouldn't you be happy to see her again? Don't you touch a hair on her head, Izuku growled with his options limit. He bit at Toga's forearm, drawing fluid before he spat the liquid in her face. You crazy woman. Izuku groaned as a knife implanted itself in his gut. Stop, Toga, we can't kill him yet. TCH fine. Izuku felt the back of his chair being grabbed before he was dragged into a bright spotlight. In front of him, a camera covered with a black cloth could be seen. Shigaraki then stood in front of him, blocking his body from the camera. Then the cover was pulled off. Welcome everyone to the retirement party of the one and only up-and-coming hero in training, Deku. Izuku stared into the camera, giving a small grin. This was a public execution. So this is the message. A fist struck Izuku across the jaw as Compress pulled his head back. Hey, don't you know it's impolite to not introduce yourself? Now, what's your name? Izuku Midoriya. And who do you hate? Izuku paused. Who did he hate? That question had too many answers. He hated Katsuki Bakugo, the bully who made his childhood hell. He hated Kai Chisaki for torturing his daughter. He hated All Might, the hypocritical monster responsible for so much bloodshed, intentional or not. He hated Uraraka, the cheating woman. He hated his class, the two-faced backstabbers. He hated the LOV. Rather, he hated every villain like them. Muscular, Mustard, the Yakuza. They hurt and take everything from innocent people. It's people like them who tortured him and his mother, violated an innocent woman, and threatened a small child. They were no better than dogs. Heroes put them away only for them to escape and repeat it again. If he could, he would slaughter them like pigs. Curse you. That response wasn't favored as Dabi, wielding a crowbar, batted at his knee, the bone shattering. Izuku refused to scream, biting his lip until it bled, defiantly glaring at his captors. His rage kept him awake, and right now he was only being given more reasons to finish them all. Seems like you don't understand the position you're in. Compress nodded to the dark corner, and Kurogiri opened a portal, and Inko dropped onto the floor in front of Izuku. She was still naked, covered in filth along with her vital fluid. Izuku's head was locked into place, and he watched his pained mother look at him as she gave a small smile. Her lips moved, and he read what she was trying to say. I love you. Izuku's eyes teared up again. as Spinner came into view, in his hand a long, sleek knife. His face looked pained, but Izuku watched as the lizard man grabbed Inko by the hair before slitting her throat. Izuku's tears fell and his chest heaved rapidly, as if the breath in his already damaged lungs was forced out of him. I'll hunt you all, I'll kill you all. Izuku howled, his quirk activating for a split second, with crimson-red lightning radiating around him. Izuku snapped the binding on his right arm before he grabbed Compress by the neck. Squeezing, he attempted to finish the villain, but before he could, Toga jumped onto his back, injecting him in the neck with a tranquilizer. Izuku kept squeezing his arm, being hit by Compress, while Dabi struck at his stomach with the crowbar. Yet he kept trying, his grip weakening as the tranquilizer started kicking in. Slowly he lost all control, his quirk dying out and Compress dropping from his grip. Izuku quickly became disorientated as he fell into the puddle of his mother's vital fluid. He was lifted back into his chair rather quickly and strapped back in his mind, still confused with the toxin running through his system. That was rude. Seems like punishment is in order, but since it's your farewell party, I suppose we can do this differently. Now everyone listen and watch closely. This is where the party starts. First came the beatings. Izuku was pummeled with fists, feet, crowbars, and knives slashing away at his skin, breaking his bones. Izuku could hardly breathe as his left lung collapsed and his ribs splintered. His shoulder was shattered by Dabi, his left hand stabbed by Toga, and more reasons to skin them alive came to Izuku. He refused to scream. He wouldn't die until he gets his revenge. Then came Toga's own time. He remembered being injected with several toxins and being on the brink of overdose as Toga had her way with his unwilling body. He didn't feel pleasure, only disgust. She dug her knife, etching where his heart rests the letter H. A twisted way to brand him as hers. Had his mouth not been taped, he would have bitten her tongue off and watched her bleed out. Through all his torture he glared. His mother, he will avenge her wrongful death. She should have lived to see him become a hero, to see her granddaughter become an adult. She should have died happily at an old age, but these monsters, they took that away from her. Eri was the only Midoriya left, and he would not let her suffer the same fate. He vowed to himself as the pain was injected directly into his brain. His mind was consumed by the need for vengeance. He wasn't going to be saved. He knew this better than anyone else. Izuku's perception warped. He didn't even know how much time passed before Toga had stopped. Now he stared into the camera as Shigaraki made his exit, pushing the camera over and onto its side. Izuku watched them throw gasoline all around him, on the walls, on the floor, everywhere. Apologies, but now the show must end. Goodbye, Deku. I hope your retirement is a peaceful one. The group left out a small door revealing daylight. Dabi lagged behind the rest as his hand sparked with blue fire. Leading to the door was a trail of gasoline, so he leaned down, placing the fire near the liquid. At once the entire room was covered in flames, and Izuku finally saw that he had been stored in a warehouse. Sitting there, he rocked his chair side to side before he fell. The chair, which had already been strained the past month, broke into pieces. Slipping out, he crawled towards his mother's body, spotting several steel drums that were marked with a symbol. A bitter and cruel grin spread across his face as his hand touched Inko's body. Izuku looked at the camera one final time, and his grin persisted. It was loud and it was bright. A single explosion of blue flame consumed the video as the feed cut out entirely. There was no sound, no visual, nothing, just a still black screen. The heroes had yet to say a word, their minds processing what they had just seen. Seconds passed until Namuri opened her mouth, tears threatening to fall. Izuku. Wano no, her pained scream reverberated throughout the room as she dropped to her knees. Her hands gripped her hair tightly, face twisting in anguish. Aizawa blinked. He seemed shell-shocked, having seen his student die. This can't be. He put a hand to his head, feeling faint. He stumbled, banging his hip into the desk. He'd seen death before, but this, he wanted to cry, to yell, but he couldn't. Nizu? The principal sat still before he rapidly started typing on his computer. The rat seemed frantic as he shouted out to the heroes. Everyone focus, I'm tracing the video's location, you all need to calm yourself. Aizawa shook his head, trying to clear his mind. He had to find Izuku, and he couldn't do it like this. It was with that in mind that he became aware of the situation once more. Namuri, however, couldn't snap out of her despair. Seeing Izuku's torture and execution was just too much for the hero. She couldn't focus. She knew she had a job to do, but her mind kept racing back to Izuku. His smile, his presence, and then how broken he was, how he yelled in anger, and how his last moments were him next to Inko's dead body. No, please, Izuku. She could only break down in front of her colleagues. I've got a location. Police, firefighters, and paramedics have already begun making their way there. Where is it? Aizawa looked at the principal. Any second he wasn't told was a second wasted. It's Narahata, in the abandoned district near the outskirts. Aizawa knew the place like the back of his hand, having been there in his past. It made perfect sense. There were a lot of abandoned buildings, and not very many people lived there other than vagrants and villains. He cursed himself for not checking the place more thoroughly when Izuku was missing, but he couldn't think about that now. Grabbing a chair, he bashed it against the window, shattering the glass before he jumped out. Snipe, Hound Dog. Follow after Aizawa, and make sure you find Midoriya. Move. Aizawa pushed past the police line that formed in front of him, his face filled with panic when he saw the collapsed warehouse. The fire had been mostly put out, but that didn't serve to provide any comfort. Rushing to the collapsed parts, he pushed and lifted whatever rubble was in the way. Izuku, he yelled out his student's name in the hope that the boy would respond, but he got nothing other than silence. He lifted pieces until he came across a body. Freezing, he quickly inspected the body. It was obviously female, meaning that Izuku was still somewhere around here. Mrs. Midoriya, he would mourn her death and his failure later. For now, he pushed on. He moved from section to section, but he failed to find any clue. There wasn't any stains or clothing left. But the absence of such evidence didn't mean that everything was fine. Izuku was hurt and died, or potentially, he was still taken captive by the League. The unknown brought forth a well of anger. Hound Dog, can you track Midoriya's scent? The League's? Hound Dog sniffed the floor and air, but all the hero could smell was smoke. Any smell had been overshadowed by the chemicals which exploded. I can't. The smoke is covering up everything. Just try, goddammit, Aizawa breathed, trying to stay calm, but he just couldn't. It was his fault he allowed Izuku to leave campus. It was all his fault. Please. Izuku, he couldn't face Eri and tell her that her papa died. He can't snipe? I got nothing. Maybe he isn't here. Maybe the video was edited, faked somehow. Snipe seemed to be grasping for straws as he saw Aizawa desperately searching within the rubble. Snipe couldn't stand seeing the usually composed teacher like this, so rushing over, Snipe pulled Aizawa back. Aizawa, calm yourself down. Aizawa grit his teeth before he shook off Snipe's grip. Going off pure instinct, he wrapped his scarf around Snipe's body before taking him to the ground. Raising his fist, he was just about to strike Snipe when his fist was stopped by Hound Dog. Get a hold of yourself. You aren't going to help Midoriya like this. Unwrapping Snipe, Aizawa put both hands over his face. Come on, let's give our statements and get back to you. We need to let the others know. Aizawa sighed. Okay. Aizawa swallowed a lump in his throat as he stood at the door of the war room. Within Yue opening the door, he stepped inside, all eyes going to him. Shota, you found him, right? You found Izuku? Namiri was the first to question the man, but he hadn't responded. He stared at Namiri, who had tear streaks running down her face, her blue eyes clearly hoping for the answer he didn't have. We didn't find him. The heartbreak that ran through Namiri's face was clear to see. You just didn't check hard enough. Namiri attempted to push past Aizawa and run out the door, but the hero caught her. Stop, I searched as thoroughly as I could. There weren't any clues of him there. Hound Dog couldn't find a scent. So you gave up? I won't move out of my way. I wanted to find him, Namiri. I tried to, don't you say? I gave up, Aizawa yelled in Namiri's face. I never gave up. I still haven't. Namiri glared at Aizawa, her tears matching the fierce anger on her face. Namiri shoved Aizawa off before sitting down. He's still out there. So no clues? Not even any articles of clothing? Nizu inquired once more, his eyes focused on the computer in front of him. No, there's nothing. I see. Nizu paused and shook his head. Then it's either Midoriya is still captive by the League or he was incinerated by the blast. Judging from the video, either way, I believe that Midoriya is. He's dead. Toshinori finished what Nizu was saying. He's not dead. Izuku is stronger than all of us combined. He's alive, and he's out there. I won't stop until I find him, Namiri yelled from her seat. She refused to believe he was dead. Izuku is better than all of us. There's no way he's dead. I agree with Namiri. I believe the League is still holding him captive. Aizawa sided with Namiri. He wouldn't believe Izuku was dead until he saw it with his own eyes. You can't just say that after what we just saw with those injuries, it's only a matter of time, Toshinori argued. He felt bad that his successor died, but he was more concerned with OFA. AFO was still alive, so that meant OFA was still needed in this world. If you say he's dead one more time. Silence before another fight could break out. Nizu quieted them down. It pained the principal to say what he was about to, but it was something that needed to be brought up. While I agree both theories are possible, there comes the matter of reporting this. Virtually nobody could survive an explosion while being in the center of it. I don't want to say this, but when it comes to letting our students know about the situation, it must be reported that Izuku Midoriya died today. Nizu, quiet. There are many students in this school who would endanger themselves in order to pursue the league if they are told that Midoriya is being held captive by them. When we first reported Midoriya and his mother missing, several people pleaded to join the search, such as the Big Three and Class 1B. Back then they had no idea who had taken Midoriya or if he was taken at all. What do you think will happen if they believe the league is responsible? As a principal, it's my duty to protect my students. I have failed with Midoriya, but I won't allow any more students to die. But reporting him dead? This is a necessary action that needs to be taken. I'm sorry, but I want you all to bring your students to the auditorium. Once there we will announce the news. Aizawa and Namuri stayed silent before the underground hero stormed out of the room. This is nonsense. Aizawa couldn't think. He only headed straight to his private office. Entering the room, he lashed out. It's all my fault. Aizawa flipped his desk over, spilling everything on the ground. Picking up his chair, he threw it at the window glass, spilling onto the floor. He thrashed his office like an animal, breaking anything that entered his line of sight. I let him leave that day. I sent him off to his death. If only I stopped him. Tears fell from Aizawa's eyes, and his rampage grew tamer and slower. He hit the wall, turning over as he dropped to the floor. He couldn't stop the small sobs coming from his mouth. It should have been me at that warehouse. Why? Why was it Izuku? The boy could have been the best hero to grace this planet. So much growth, so much potential, all gone to waste. Aizawa thought of the boy, and how he was being tortured and kept captive by the League. Then Eri popped into his head. Dear God, what am I going to tell her? He promised her. He promised he would find Izuku. Straight to Eri's face. She believed him. She smiled at him and told him she believed that he would. Nijire sat at her desk. In her hands, strands of white hair overlapped each other, making tight braids. The periwinkle-haired girl let out a small sigh. It's been a month, and there was still no word from or about Izuku. It had been a shock to hear the boy had gone missing, and for Nijire, it was worrying. Even when she was told, she didn't believe Izuku had just up and left, not with Eri in his life. She knew better than anyone just how much Izuku loved Eri. That was why she always found it suspicious. She was depressed, she missed him, and her heart ached every time she woke up only to find out he still hadn't returned, but her pain was minuscule compared to Eri. Looking at her pseudo-daughter, Nijire opened her mouth, her voice laced with concern. Eri, are you okay? I'm okay. Eri refused to look back, and in her arms, clutched tightly, was the green bunny Izuku had gotten for her. Her voice was quiet, and Nijire frowned hearing how low it was. Ever since Izuku had gone missing, Eri had become what seemed like a shell of herself, reminiscent of how she was when she lived with Overhaul. It made Nijire want to cry. She hated seeing Eri like this. She tried her best to support Eri with help from Mei, Reiko, Itsuka, and Namuri, but nothing got her to go back to how she was. The group of mothers had tried and tried, but it was obvious that only Izuku could truly bring her smile back. Nijire, focusing back on Eri's hair, heard the speaker within the classroom turn on, alerting everyone. All students report to the auditorium. Principal Nizu has an announcement to make. Please wait until your teachers have cleared you. It was sudden, but Nijire's heart jumped. Is this about Izuku? Did they find him? Her head screamed these questions, and a smile appeared on her face as she lifted Eri into her arms. Looking at Mirio and Amajiki, the two gave their own smiles. Class 1A, the top hero class within U.A, sat at their seats. Having heard the announcement, many of them had already packed their bags just in case the announcement took long. As they were just ready to leave, the door to the classroom opened, and Aizawa stepped inside. Jiro was the first to notice Aizawa's irregular heartbeat, but the rest quickly noticed that Aizawa looked horrible. All of you go to the auditorium. Aizawa-sensei, are you all right? It was Ida who received a curdling glare. Tenya, Ida, my health is of no concern to you. Report to the auditorium. Now the teacher was beyond pissed. and the class was almost too afraid to move. Even Bakugu had recoiled at Aizawa's raised voice. Quickly, they rushed out of the room, not wanting to warrant any more anger from their teacher. They were all confused, though some of the more perceptive reasoned it may be about Midoriya. Either way, they made their way to the auditorium. In Class 1B, events played out in a rather similar way. The students packed their bags as advised by their class rep, but they still spoke curiously about the news. I wonder what this announcement is about. Itsuka couldn't help but wonder as she looked at Reiko, who seemed to be lost in her thoughts. Perhaps something spooky happened? Reiko answered vaguely. She didn't know what it was about, but it was no doubt important. You think it's about Green, the first mean he's been miss. Setsuna spoke out before she covered her mouth, looking at Reiko and Itsuka, who looked a bit pained at her words. Sorry, I didn't. It's all right. The class quickly went silent. It was fairly obvious to everyone that both Reiko and Itsuka had feelings for Class A's golden boy. It had become obvious from the way they constantly looked after Eri, as if she were their daughter. However, the first indicator was when Izuku's absence was made public to them. The two were the first to act, and Reiko had actually yelled at their teacher Vlad in order to try and join the search parties. It was then that they all knew. Before the awkwardness set in, the door opened with Vlad stepping in with a solemn look on his face, which didn't look good. Is everyone ready? It's important that we attend this assembly. Yes, we are. Answering for her class, Itsuka stepped forward. Her class lined up behind her with Reiko leading them. Well then, let's go. Clangs of metal could be heard loudly as Mei worked furiously on one of her inventions, or as she loved to call them, her babies. In a time like this, it was the only thing to distract her, this and Eri. Though many thought it wouldn't have affected her, Izuku's disappearance had done more damage than even she thought it would. Every day she found herself almost giving into the urge to go to his dorm and ask him to prototype one of her babies. A common excuse she made in order to hang out with him, but then she was forced to remember that he wasn't there. Covered in grime, she refused to look anywhere as her workshop was littered with upgrades that she had drafted up with Izuku, along with a new hero suit and gloves that she had prepared for him. He had promised to visit her workshop a day before he went missing. It was only when he didn't show up that she knew something was up. She had investigated all his hangout and training spots only to find them emptied. Izuku wasn't one to break a promise, and she knew that. She blushed. His smile whenever he said that he'll visit always got to her. She wished he was here right now. She missed his nagging about how she should eat properly and get more sleep. Hatsum. Oh, Powerloader-sensei. Didn't you hear the announcement? Confused Mei thought about it before Powerloader shook his head. You were probably working, but come on, we need to go. What is this announcement about? Mei decided had it not been important to her, then she would go. She still needed to work on her babies afterward. Powerloader sighed. It's about Midoriya. What? Did something happen? Did you find him? Mei put down her wrench, quickly wiping whatever oil stains she had off. All will be explained at the assembly, come on. The auditorium room shuffled as students flooded in through the doors. All classes, no matter grade or subject, had gathered inside. Each student took their seat, waiting for the assembly to commence. Eri looked through the crowd from Nijire's lap, her red eyes searching for one person in particular. Aizawa, who had spotted her first, walked through the small aisle before reaching her. He prepared himself as Eri gave him a small smile. Uncle Aizawa, did you find Papa? All preparation had disappeared the moment he looked into her eyes. His outstretched hand, which had gone to stroke Eri's head, paused, shaking. Eri-eye. He opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come out as he put his hand down, making a fist. He couldn't say he was sorry. He couldn't say anything that wouldn't be a lie or comforting. So he stayed silent. Eri wanted to ask again, but she was quieted by someone clearing their throat. On the main stage, Nizu held a microphone in his paw, and the principal looked solemn as he spoke. Good afternoon, students. As many of you are aware, a month ago, Izuku Midoriya from Class 1A was reported missing along with his mother. Recent events have brought to light the condition of both Inko and Izuku Midoriya. It is with heavy regret that I must inform you that Inko Midoriya and Izuku Midoriya have been found dead. Their cause of death is unknown, and foul play has not been determined. No one spoke a word. All were scared to break the silence. Eri was frozen, still, her mind trying to comprehend what she was just told. Her eyes watered with fresh tears, and with trembling lips, she looked to Aizawa. Uncle Papa is coming back, right? You promised. Aizawa tried to hold himself together, but he was losing quickly. All around, others looked to their friends, making sure that what they heard was true. Reiko and Itsuka got many concerned stares from their friends, but they were far too occupied to notice them. Reiko kept her emotionless stare, but that facade crumbled as tears fell down her cheeks. Itsuka had put a hand over her mouth, her body hunched over like she was about to throw up. Mei hugged herself, chuckling, caught in a cycle of cynical disbelief. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't. She could only think that had she improved her babies made for Izuku, the boy could have lived. Nijire's head was spinning. She couldn't make heads or tails of what she heard, but her heart felt as though it was being squeezed by a vice grip. She hadn't noticed the tears falling on her clothes as Eri spoke once more. "Where's Papa?" Eri was close to having a panic attack. The poor girl's heart couldn't handle this as her tears increased. "Uncle, you promised. Where's Papa?" "Hick, where?" She screamed, her voice breaking as she stared at Izawa, the man, letting his own tears out. "Papa, Grandma," she screamed, for anyone. She couldn't be the last Midoriya. She never had a family until they showed up. Without them, Papa is still there. He's waiting for me. Eri hyperventilated, her entire body shaking before she ran. She only had one place in mind. Running past Izawa, the man tried to grab her, but he was too late. She ran towards the door as fast as her feet could carry her, but before she could make it out, Namuri grabbed a hold of her, bringing her into a hug. The woman cried as Eri struggled in her grasp. "Papa, Papa." Namuri held the girl tight, her heart shattering at the pure desperation in Eri's face. She could see the girl's soul breaking little by little, and she couldn't do anything to stop it. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." She could only apologize as she activated her quirk. Eri's struggle slowed until the girl fell unconscious. Namuri wiped her tears before leaving with Eri in her arms. She couldn't stay there anymore. Though many grieved for Izuku's death, there was one who lacked such sympathy. Katsuki Bakugo grinned, hiding his laughter. "Our Deku finally got what he deserves, always getting in my way. Thinking he was better. Well, who's better now? Now he and his woman can rot in hell. Don't worry, Deku, I'll be the #1 hero and live the life I deserve." Nizu looked at the crowd before gripping the microphone. "I understand if time is needed to grieve. Class will be paused for an indefinite amount of time until you're all ready to resume. I wish there was happier news I can share, but unfortunately, there isn't, and for that I'm sorry. I caution all of you to stay inside the campus and not venture out. For those in work studies, your supervising heroes will be notified. This assembly is dismissed." Slowly, students left, with some notably Nijire, Itsuka, Reiko, and Mei remaining in pure silence. They didn't look at anyone or anything. They were all trapped within their own heads, and that perhaps was the worst place to be. Once most people left, only one remained in the auditorium. Izawa stared at the empty spaces, Eri's eyes that were filled with hate at his betrayal staring back at him. He betrayed her. He betrayed Izuku. "I should have never let him go." Izawa turned to leave. He didn't deserve to be a teacher or a mentor. "Papa, Hick." Grandma Eri hugged her stuffed bunny tight, her eyes shut and face buried in the pillow of Izuku's bed. She whimpered within Namuri's embrace, the woman laying with her in the bed. Namuri had brought her back to Izuku's dorm as it was the only thing she could think of. Namuri tried to soothe Eri, but she too wasn't in the best of conditions. Unlike the other girls, she had seen how Izuku died, how he was tortured. A part of her was glad they didn't know. They wouldn't have to know how Izuku's last moments were filled with pain. "Why am I?" she questioned herself. She was thinking about Izuku as if he was dead. They didn't find a body nor any clues. "He's still alive, I know it." "Will Papa come back?" Eri's low-spoken voice wasn't missed, and Namuri, placing a hand on Eri's cheek, turned the girl's head so that her blue eyes were staring into red ones. "Eri, your Papa is strong. I know he wouldn't leave you. I know he'll come back." Namuri paused, giving off a smile. "Until then, I'll take care of you, so when your Papa does come back, he'll be happy." His little snowball can still smile. Picking up Eri, she laid on her back with Eri on top of her chest. "Mama will take care of you." Eri sniffled before digging her head into Namuri. "Papa." It was hot. The blue flames burned themselves in his emerald eyes. His fingers glided along the dead flesh of his mother. Her vital fluid was slightly cold and dark as it swirled and mixed with his. "I won't." The fire expanded, and he could count the time he had left with his fingers. He let out a breath, red lightning surging as the corpse was lifted. "I won't die," he yelled, his mouth filled with vital fluid as he turned his entire body. His legs creaked and his feet planted themselves unsteadily. There was so much pain, but he stubbornly refused to give in. Izuku watched as the steel drum groaned, his mother's body a shield as an explosion shook the foundation. He could feel the heat almost reach him, only being stopped by his mother. Once the smell of burning flesh and hair hit his nose, his grip on Inko's body loosened. He pushed off with his legs pumping every ounce of strength he had left as he was lifted off with the explosion. His back had hit a wall, but instead of stopping, he went through his back, being shredded as pieces of concrete acted like shrapnel. The rays of sunlight were all Izuku could see as he flew through the air. He didn't know where he was headed nor where he would land. He only closed his eyes, waiting. The rush of air he felt should have been comforting, knowing that he was free from that hell hole, but it didn't. His mother didn't feel this, and to him, it was more of a reminder that he failed. He, a quirkless nobody, had lived instead of her. The rush of air served to only fuel his anger. Opening his eyes, Izuku turned so that his left shoulder aimed downward. He could feel the shift in the air, indicating he was coming closer to the ground. By the scenery, it was easy to tell he had flown far enough to leave whatever city he was in and enter the forest. He had put everything into his jump, and with the explosion only propelling him, it was no wonder he had no idea where he was at. Bracing himself, Izuku covered his head as he broke through a cluster of trees. He hit fast and hard. Branches snapped and slashed at his skin, gouging even deeper cuts than before. Trying to reduce the impact, Izuku tried to grab anything to stop his descent, but with his momentum, he only succeeded in dislocating his right arm in an attempt to grab onto a tree branch. Nothing could stop him as he made contact with the ground, his body rolling and skidding on top of the grass. After a few seconds, Izuku came to a stop, hitting the base of another tree. He could feel more of his ribs break. Clenching his fist, his body scrunched until he lay in the fetal position. He let out an ear-piercing scream. The stabs, the disintegration, the bludgeoning, it all hurt beyond what he thought possible. It wasn't just the physical pain, his mind was broken. He watched as his mother was getting molested and killed in front of him. He was violated and toyed with. He was so angry that he wanted nothing more than to butcher the League in the most painful way possible. He lay there screaming, soft sobs coming from his lips. I'll find them, I'll live them all. He beat his left fist on the ground, causing more pain to shoot into his body. He eventually stopped, and the fatigue from his blood loss had finally hit him. What good was his promise if he died here? With no other option, he leaned on the tree, pulling himself up. His broken knee made it hard and painful. Reaching his feet, Izuku took a breather, his head turning to his dislocated arm. Turning over, he hissed, moving his arm before he bashed his shoulder against the tree, trying to fix it. Crack! Izuku shook as his shoulder was forcibly put back into its socket. With his arm better than it was, he limped forward. The blood that stained his skin kept flowing down, making a small trail as he kept going. Using any tree he could, he kept moving. He had no clue where in the forest he was, or if he was facing the direction of any city. Either way, he didn't have time to find out. Ripping apart the few remains of his clothing, he tied the makeshift bandage around his abdomen where most of Toga's cuts had been done. Coughing, Izuku spit out a glob of blood, his chest stinging in pain. He could barely breathe properly. His broken body had already begun failing him. Those animals. I'll kill them. I'll beat them until they scream for death. Izuku's vision had started blurring and his thoughts became jumbled up. He was losing vital fluid fast. He kept walking until his eyes saw a dark cavern. He wasn't sure if it was even real. His sleep deprivation and lack of blood had caused his perception to decline. Still, he ventured inside the cold interior, making his already pale and freezing body even colder. He licked his lips, thirst making itself known as his throat dried. Tired. He was so very tired. He wanted to close his eyes, but a part of him screamed not to. It told him if he closed his eyes now, he wouldn't ever open them again. He didn't know how long he walked down the winding tunnels before his ears picked up the sound of small splashes, as if something were being thrown into a pond. He followed the sound until he arrived at a small pit of what looked like water. This water was peculiar, however, as it glowed with an almost toxic green. Izuku smacked his lips. The only thing he wanted was water. He moved, but he couldn't get far. His body already had started shutting down as the boy fell to the floor, coughing up vital fluid. He couldn't walk, so he crawled. His nails chipped as he dragged himself towards the pit. Izuku needed to live. He needed to avenge his mom. To protect Eri, Izuku's eyes drained of color as he reached the water. His injuries had caught up to him, and he couldn't handle it anymore. His body slipped and splashed into the green water. His corpse sunk and small bubbles escaped to the surface until they stopped. Everything was quiet. For minutes, nothing moved or made a sound until a crackle of red lightning bounced off the surface of the water. Another bolt appeared after the first before more and more started forming. The water boiled as the lightning increased in strength. The lightning broke its self-containment as it struck the surrounding walls, chipping away at the rocks that made them. The water rippled and shook, splashing violently as a figure broke its surface. Izuku let out a feral yell. His eyes, crazed, the wounds that had killed him healed, leaving only scarring. He grabbed his wet hair, thrashing violently, his body flaring in pain. His muscles looked more defined than they should be, and his height was taller than it ever was before. Such a rapid change had caused unbearable amounts of pain, as if his body was mulched and recycled several times. Throwing up copious amounts of the green water emptied itself, returning to the pit. Izuku panicked, his body acting on its own. With what looked to be OFA activated, he ran at a speed greater than ever before. He had left the pit with only a flash of red. In his panic, he had run down one of the many tunnels that had branched to where the pit rested. He had no sense of direction. He only went as far as his legs carried him until he was forced to stop. With the small amount of light coming from OFA, he saw a large metal door. Confused, he looked around, but he had no other option other than to see what was behind it. Jamming his fingers into the small gap between the two separated plates of metal, he pushed with all his strength. The metal creaked, protesting the forceful entrance, but Izuku kept going until light could be seen through the small crack. Even with his quirk activated, the door refused to budge, clearly having been made to resist such force in the first place. It was intriguing, but it wasn't the time to be impressed. Budging it open just enough to where his body could fit, Izuku forced himself through, covering his eyes as several lights blinded him. When his eyes adjusted, Izuku marveled at the space he was in. Weapons of every kind littered the wall, and vehicles armored and equipped with weapons sat still. If that wasn't all, the entire room was covered in technology. He had never seen anything like this. It was obvious that this entire place was man-made, as the surrounding walls differed from the naturally formed rocky texture of whatever cave he had stumbled in. It was sleek and manufactured, almost alien. Not even on island did he see anything close to this. Where am I? He started trying to search for anything that remotely resembled something he knew before his eyes rested on a single door. He didn't know why it caught his attention, but the red bat symbol that was stamped on the sleek metal drew him in. Walking to the door, he looked for the handle only to see none. Trying anything, he tried to slide the door and even push it open, but it was only when he laid his hand on the bat symbol that something happened. A light flashed underneath his hand, seemingly scanning it, before a robotic voice called out to him. Handprint identification failed. Biometric security? He didn't know how, nor did he have the time to try and hack his way through, so Izuku opted for brute force. Looking for anything to stick between the metal and the wall, he saw a crowbar. Izuku stepped back, his mind flashed to the times he and his mother were beaten by the very same tool. His anger rose again, remembering their faces. Despite his internal hatred for such a tool, he grabbed a hold of it. Angling the crowbar, he activated OFA, now noticing the color change. He thought it odd, but didn't question it. Jamming the chisel into the small gap, Izuku pushed on the crowbar using all his strength and weight, just as how it was for the main door. This one was similarly durable, perhaps only just a bit weaker. After a painstaking 15 minutes, he finally budged the door open. Stepping inside, Izuku watched as several automatic lights came to life, lighting up a large workshop area. Tools were organized and ready for use, but what attracted Izuku's attention the most were several display cases showcasing different costumes. Was this a hero's base? Izuku walked to one of the display cases, placing his hand on the glass. He stared at the black-plated armor and the intimidating red helmet. His eyes traced every detail as he tried to remember if he had ever seen a hero wear such armor. Turning, he tried to look for any indicators of whose place he had infiltrated. His eyes looked to the tables before spotting a computer, or what looked like one. Walking up to it, he turned the screen on it, lighting up with the same bat symbol before words appeared on the screen. Welcome, Red Hood. Izuku was now sure this wasn't anyone he has ever heard of. Despite the breach of privacy, he scrubbed through the files on the computer, trying to understand his situation. By doing this, he was made aware of who Red Hood was, and in turn Jason Todd, a vigilante, most known from the pre-Quirk era. Izuku was astounded at what he saw, files detailing all the vigilantes' training, weapons, martial arts, and workouts. There wasn't anything that wasn't revealed. Izuku had only stopped looking when the files had come to an end. Sitting down, Izuku looked at the displayed armors. Red Hood, the vigilante, had lived a past similar, and in Izuku's opinion worse than his, yet he still strived for justice after his resurrection. Looking at his body, Izuku's eyes fell to the scarred H on his skin. Red Hood was an agent of vengeance, of true vengeance. Perhaps it was only with Red Hood that his mother could be. Izuku sat staring at the ceiling. He didn't have a lot of choices. Rather, most of them could only lead to more misery. He could return to Yuta A to reunite with his daughter, but then he would have to give up OFA, and being quirkless was essentially a death sentence. Without a quirk, he wouldn't be able to protect Eri, much less himself, and if the League were to find out he lived, they would no doubt hunt him down. Then there was the other option. Red Hood. Izuku was sure he was reported dead. The details of how he didn't know, nor did he care, but he was dead. By taking Red Hood's image and name, he could avenge his mother and protect the only family he has left. The League was dangerous. They had already threatened to harm Eri before, and the insane don't need a reason to act on their threats. He couldn't just jail them either. He always knew it, but the justice system in this society never worked. They lock up murderers only for them to escape and repeat it again. All for One was a prime example. The monster enslaved this country for centuries, and yet none of his predecessors killed him, only fought him back, while innocents were caught in the crossfire. He couldn't let Shigaraki and the League live. They were nothing more than animals. What they did to his mother, and to him, was unforgivable. Mom, she deserved so much better than what she got. She deserved a son worthy of her love. He should have protected her no matter what it took. He should have saved her, but he didn't. Her honor, her life, everything was taken from her in an unjust way. Shizuna lived like an animal. He couldn't go through it again. He couldn't see his daughter in the same position. Izuku's choice was already made. He didn't have to deliberate nor question himself further. Standing, he faced the display case he touched earlier. His reflection melded with the red helmet, making them one. Izuku Midoriya had died. The hero Deku had been incinerated, and all that remained was the Red Hood. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.